Ventilation mistakes that shorten your roof's life, there's hundreds of them. We literally just got done doing a training with our sales team and talking about the variety of ways that you should ventilate a house and the variety of ways you should not ventilate a house. Number one, really the main thing is to understand is really how ventilation in a house works. Most common way to explain this is if you look at the overhang of a house, which is called your soffit, that area is generally open or ventilated. That's where we consider an intake. So that's where air is actually coming into your house's attic. And then you have the exhaust. Exhaust is generally done through either a ridge vent or box vents or turtle vents or other types of vents that you can see on top of the roof. You generally can't have too much exhaust, but you can have too much intake. One of the most major ventilation mistakes that we often see is with the development of ridge vent. Ridge vent, a lot of people are familiar with, is the black vent that you see right on top of the peaks of the house. That kind of came out in the last 20 years. Can pretty easily see on some roofs where it's a very large attic space and then you have maybe 10 feet of ridge on top. And when you see ridge vent like that, you also often see swoopiness kind of between trusses and that sort of thing. That's how you know that you have bad ventilation, because there's so much humidity that's built up in that attic space that the plywood and the shingles are starting to sag in between each of those trusses. So lack of exhaust is huge. You see a lot of people plugging the old box vents to put on ridge vent, but GAF has a lot of support to all the contractors under the GAF contractor program. So being a 2-star President's Club for us, when we order the GAF satellite measurements called Quick Measure, it actually gives us a breakdown and tells us how much ridge vent we should have to be able to meet the attic requirements for exhaust, but also how many box vents we could do alternatively. Not every roof has the right amount of ridge to be able to accommodate to that. So there's actually a lot of houses right near our office here in Monona on the east side of Madison, older style homes called like bungalows and that sort of thing, where they have really small areas of ridge. And with recent hailstorms, we've seen other roofs getting done that I can definitely see that there's going to be ventilation issues with it, because everyone, like I said, just likes putting on ridge vent. It's a lot easier. They can just smack that on there and then be done with it. I understand like aesthetically having like 10 of those slant back or box vents on a roof may not be the sexiest thing for a roof, but function over fashion sometimes is the most important. Other ventilation mistakes that are often not really thought about, as I mentioned with bungalow style homes, sometimes you just don't even have an overhang on a house. So you don't have that soffit overhang where you get intake. In that case, sometimes you will see just exhaust vents on top of the roof. I suppose that works in some way, shape, or form. Hot air does rise and can exhaust through the top of the house, but there's nothing really forcing that out. We've made mistakes in the past and we've learned. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So one thing that I've seen often, especially with these types of houses that don't have intake, where they'll just go and put a power vent right on top of a roof. Well, a power vent, what has is a humidistat in it. So as humidity grows, it'll trip a sensor and then the exhaust fan will turn on. That power vent is literally sucking the air right out of your house. So the air conditioning or the heater that you have running in your house, and it's just pulling that directly out of your house and trying to exhaust that air. That is, you're absolutely wasting dollars on your power bill and your heating bill and that sort of thing. One of the most common ways to identify if you're having ventilation issues on your house would be looking at a roof and seeing that swoopiness between the trusses. That's a very common sign, and it's pretty widespread. As you're driving around, you can see where you can literally almost identify each individual truss on the roof. And the reason why that's happening is there's humidity that's building up in that attic. You need the intake for the air to flow in and the exhaust for the air to literally force that humidity and that condensation in the attic out of the attic. And that's really what ventilation is. One other way to know that your house could not be ventilated properly is your roof needing to get replaced too early. Think of it as an oven. If there's nothing allowing for that air to properly flow through there on those hot summer days and that kind of thing, it is literally just cooking your house from the inside out. But in particular, it's cooking your roof from the inside out. So what can happen is you can have excessive granule loss, and you'll really just see way too many granules down in your gutters and at the ends of your downspouts, and you can see some major streaks on the roofs from granules being lost that way too. That's often caused from poor ventilation or lack of ventilation on the house as a whole. For all of these reasons is exactly why, as part of our inspection process, when we come to your home, we are stepping into your attic or peeking into the attic to get a good understanding of what the airflow actually looks like. It's very important for us to identify that we can actually see that there's air intake in the attic, not just from the outside. From the outside, it's pretty easy to see that there's holes in your soffit and that kind of thing, but then you hop into the attic and you can't see any daylight or anything like that coming from that area, because the insulation got blown over it or something to that effect. If you are hiring somebody or having estimates and your contractor's not going into your attic to actually verify if you have proper ventilation, you could be wasting your time. And if you think you have poor ventilation or running into other roofing issues that way, please reach out to Heinz Contracting. We would be happy to help and do a free inspection for you.